In this video, we'll study about the histology of glands. Some epithelial cells may be specialized to perform a secretory function. Such cell present single or in groups, they constitute the gland. Depending upon the number of cells, the glands may be classified as unicellular glands. The unicellular glands are interspersed among the other non-secretory epithelial cells. They can be found in the epithelial lining of the intestines. So here the goblet cells forms here the unicellular glands. The other type is the multicellular gland. So most of the glands are multicellular. So these glands develops as diverticulate from the epithelial surface. The distal part of the diverticulate develop into the secretory element, while the proximal part form the duct through which the secretion reach the epithelial surface. Example, the parotid gland and lacrimal gland. Based on the presence or absence of the duct, the glands can be classified as exocrine glands and endocrine glands. The glands that pour their secretion onto the epithelial surface directly or through ducts are called as exocrine glands, and some glands they lose all contact with the epithelial surface from which they develop and they pour their secretion into the blood. Such glands are called as endocrine glands or ductless glands. Based on the branching pattern of the duct, the gland can be classified as simple and compound. In simple, when all the secretory cells of the exocrine gland discharge into one duct, and the gland is said to be simple gland. Example, gastric glands and sweat glands. In compound glands, there are number of groups of secretory cells and each group discharging into one duct, and these ducts unite to form a larger duct that ultimately drain into the epithelial surface. Such gland is known as compound gland. Example, parotid gland, pancreas. Based on the shape of the secretory unit, the glands can be classified as tubular, acinar and alveolar. In tubular, the glands with secretory unit tubular in shape. The tube may be straight, coiled or branched. Example, gastric glands. In acinar, the glands with the secretory unit are round or oval. Example, salivary glands. In alveolar glands, the secretory unit are flask shaped. The combination of the branching pattern of the duct and the shape of the secretory units, the glands may be classified as simple tubular, simple branched tubular, simple alveolar and simple branched alveolar, and compound tubular, compound alveolar and compound tubulo-alveolar. Based on the nature of the secretion, the glands can be classified as serous glands and mucous glands. So the parotid salivary gland forms the serous gland and the sublingual salivary glands is an example for mucus secreting gland. In the mucous gland, the cells of mucus acini are tall with the flat nuclei at the base. The lumen of these acini are larger than the serous acini. In mucous gland, the secretion contains mucopolysaccharide and the secretion collects in the apical part of the cells. As a result, the nuclei are pushed to the base of the cells and may be flattened. With the hematoxylin and eosin staining, the secretion within the mucous cell remain unstained and they look like empty cells. The unicellular cells secreting the mucus are numerous in the intestine and they are known as the goblet cells because of their peculiar shape. Next we'll see about the serous glands. The cells of serous acini are triangular and you have a rounded nucleus. Their nuclei are centrally placed and the secretion of the serous glands are protein in nature. The cytoplasm of serous cell is granular and often stained bluish with hematoxylin and eosin stain. The lumen of the acini is small when compared to the mucous acini. Some glands have both the mucous acini and the serous acini. So they are known as the mixed gland. Example, the submandibular salivary gland. Based on the manner in which the secretions are poured out, the glands can be classified as merocrine, apocrine and holocrine. In merocrine, in most of the exocrine glands, the secretion are thrown out of the cell by a process called exocytosis. The cell remains intact. This manner of secretion is described as merocrine. Example, the goblet cells. In some glands, the apical part of the cell is shed off to discharge the secretion. This manner of secretion is described as apocrine. An example of apocrine secretion is atypical sweat glands and in mammary glands. In holocrine glands, the entire cell disintegrates while discharging its secretion. This is typically seen in sebaceous gland. Next we'll see about the structural organization of exocrine glands. All the exocrine glands have basically the same structural organization consisting of three components. One is the parenchyma, the next one is the stroma, and the third one is the duct system. So these three are the basic structural organization: the parenchyma, the stroma and the duct system. The secretory cells of the glands constitute the parenchyma. The connective tissue in which the parenchyma lies is the stroma. The glandular tissue is often divisible into lobules separated by the connective tissue. Aggregation of the lobules may form a distinct lobe. So this is one lobe and this is then another lobe. Inside the lobe you have the lobules. So these are the lobules. Connective tissue covering the entire gland is known as the capsule. Blood vessels and the nerve pass along the connective tissue septa to reach the secretory elements. Their activity is under nervous or hormonal control. Next we'll see the duct system. The duct convey the secretory product of the gland. When the gland is divided into lobes, the duct draining it may be intralobular. So it is one lobule. So it may be intralobular lying within a lobule. Then interlobular. So between the lobules, and interlobar, that is between the adjacent lobe, in an increasing order of size. Next we'll see about the structural organization of endocrine glands. The endocrine glands are usually arranged as cords or in clumps. They are intimately related to rich network of blood capillaries or sinusoids. In some cases, the cells may form follicles. So these are the follicles, rounded follicles. The endocrine cells and their blood vessels are supported by delicate connective tissue and usually surrounded by a capsule. Next we'll see about the development of the glands. Both exocrine and endocrine develop as a diverticular of the epithelium. The exocrine glands develop as a solid bud from the epithelium into the underlying connective tissue. Soon it elongates and undergo canalization and displays a secretory and a conducting portion. The conducting part forms the duct and it is continuous with the epithelium. Hence, an exocrine gland discharges its secretion through a duct. In the endocrine glands, it also develops as a similar manner to the exocrine, but with further development, it breaks its continuity with the overlying epithelium. It appears as a clumps of cells Soon, these groups of cells are surrounded by blood vessels into which their secretion are poured out. When you see the clinical correlation, neoplasm can arise from the epithelial lining of a gland. A benign growth arising in a gland is known as adenoma. A malignant growth is known as the adenocarcinoma.